Israel's genocidal war has entered in a very critical stage. Israel has launched a ground and air offensive in Rafah. Rafah city is a very small city. It had 275,000 population before October 7 when Hamas had launched military operation inside Palestinian occupied territories controlled by Israel. And now the population of in Rafah city is nearly 1.5 million, and this has happened after Israel launched war inside northern part of Gaza. From there, people fled to the southern part, to the Khan Yunus, and now finally they ended up in Rafah. And Rafah, being a very small territory, it is just 64 square kilometer. That's a very small territory, and it's a thickly populated. Launching a ground offensive, launching an air offensive means there would be catastrophic consequences. But Israel is the least concerned about any pressure. There were threats by Egypt few months ago that it could possibly revoke a peace accord which it had signed with Israel after 5 wars in 1978. Under this peace accord, Israel could not have taken over the Rapha Crossing, which it has not taken over. It has blocked the only route which led into Gaza. There is a complete now blockage of humanitarian aid. There is no way out for the Palestinians now. It seems they are being starved to death on one hand, and from air they are being attacked, from the ground they are being attacked. And there is a complete silence in the Arab world, and there is obviously so-called lip service coming from the West that they were against this operation. US said it had paused the supplies of the weapons to Israel, despite the fact that already Pentagon has dispatched sufficient amount of weapons to Israel, and it can use up to maybe 1 year. So in that context, we need to see a bigger picture. What is going on there? In what manner Israeli military has launched the operation, and what is a reaction from Hamas? Israel says that Hamas has its 4th brigade inside Rafah city, and it would eliminate it. So far, what we know that Israel has completely failed to contain the strength of Hamas. It has been carrying out rocket attacks deep inside Palestinian territories controlled by Israel, despite the fact that Israel believes that it would be able to completely eliminate Hamas. Today, we have Hamas spokesperson Dr. Khaled Qadoomi. He has joined us. He will report us on what is happening in Rafah city, what kind of resistance Israeli army is facing there. More importantly, he is expected to reveal a secret American plan in league with Israel to play with the fate of people in Gaza. To begin with, Dr. Khaled Qadoomi, can you tell me what is going on in Rafah after so-called ground offensive by Israel? And what kind of warfare is taking place there?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for having me, Javed. What is happening? We are entering now the 8th month of the Tufan, and the Israeli atrocities, offense, and aggression is continuous, irrespective of the international repeated calls to stop the genocide over there. But it looks that it landed on a deaf ears of the existing Israeli leadership. The way they are fanatic, extremist, criminal, corrupt leaders. So the talks which everybody was talking about it, Hamas has announced that they approved the last proposal which has been submitted through the mediators, the Qataris and the Egyptian, with the also, as they have told us, approval of the American administration to whatever has been mentioned over there, plus that what we have knew from the mediators, that they put it in a way that it will also be not a problem for the Israeli side. So we have put the ball in the court of the enemy, and unfortunately, as you have seen and everybody witnessed, that the Israeli leadership refused this proposal and repeated us to the square one. Rather, they have entered what they claim to be the last geography which has not been attacked inside Gaza. They entered with arsenal. They did incursion. They captured the Rafah crossing border for the last 4 days, and they are stopping the humanitarian aid to get into Gaza. They are also stopping the business trucks which used to come from Karm Abu Salem, and then they wanted to suffocate the people over there. The common man in the street, they tried to escape. More than 80,000 of the dwellers of Rafah, from those who has already left their houses from the north of Gaza to south. They have lifted their places, the refugee camps, the schools, the hospitals, because Israelis are bombarding the residential areas. This is complicated when we witness the continuous silence of the international community. Here, when I say silence, I say the actual practical diplomatic maneuver, which can be counted by the Israeli side as a pressure. Even today we have seen in United Nations how this organization has accepted the membership of Palestinian state, and then we found that the Israeli ambassador has again violated the diplomatic norms by speaking, by releasing undiplomatic terms, as usual used to happen for the last decade, for the last rather century. Since 74 years, Israelis, they are reiterating the same stories. Anything in their favor is good, anything in favor of humanity, in favor of justice, and it needs that Israeli should pay the taxes for the peace. It's not good to them, and they protest, and when they protest, they also receive the American support and the American green light. I also hear
coming to the back to the Rafah, I'm more interested that it is a very densely populated city. 1.5 million people are there, and its actual capacity was nearly 300,000. Now, more than half of the population is probably they are children. And Israel has launched ground and air offensive. What does it really mean to the people in Gaza, and also how Hamas and other resistance groups are battling against the enemy forces?
As I said earlier, Javed, this is a tragedy. I mean, this is a continuity of the genocide. As you've said, that a city with a capacity of 250,000 dwellers, all of a sudden they receive 1.2, 1.3 million refugee who has left their houses. So you can imagine the size of the destruction and the calamity which will be the outcome of the Israeli attack over Rafah. Yes, most of them, they are, as Honorwa used to say or said lately, that this is a war against women, because most of the martyrs and the one who is being killed among the Palestinians by the American arms, by the Israeli forces, are women and children. 70% of the 45,000 martyrs and lost people of Gaza, they are women and children. This is what is the story in Rafah. It's more of a humanitarian crisis, and the blame is on the Israeli leadership and the international community, who fail to pressurize Israel enough to abide by the international will. And the second thing, for us in resistance, not only in Hamas, not in Jihad Islami, even our people, they left to their own destiny. So we are defending ourselves. Today, we've managed also to face the Israeli incursions from the eastern side of Rafah. Israelis, they announced tens of the soldiers of Israelis who has been killed in this incursion. We launched rockets against the military bases in the occupied Palestine, Israeli targets. So this is all because of the stubborn, fanatic, extreme leadership style in Israel.
I wonder that it's been more than 6 months, nearly it's 7 months to the Israel's war, and nonetheless we have seen that the resistance groups, particularly Hamas, has been firing rockets deep inside occupied Palestinian territory controlled by Israel, and how the Mujahideen, these soldiers of resistance groups, are surviving, and apparently there seems no supply routes. You have been blocked from all sides. I mean, it's all the tunnel network that is the source of the survival of the Hamas and other groups.
There's, actually, that tells you two or three major points over here. The good preparation of our people, their belief in their own cause, just issue, their deep creed that they are right and the other are invaders, and we need to finish this occupation and invasion. The second major element is the steadfastness of our people who are with us, and they have seen how this enemy is brutally against the humanity, and they have seen how their leadership of resistance, they are participating with them in their own destiny, with their children, with their houses, with themselves. They have been raised over there as a martyr in this battle. And the third thing is the actually advancement of the techniques of the resistance of the Palestinian, which has started once by stone, and now they have the rockets with the range of more than 200 kilometers. They have their drones. They are successful in the cyber business, and how they have managed to shift the expertise inside Gaza. So more than 80% of their own arsenal is locally made. Hence, they, when the people, the nation decide to achieve their liberty, to achieve their independence, they do it even with the bare hands. So our fighters today, they have advanced enough to gain the nation support, to gain the international support. As you have seen, this Tufan and this storm, it has clicked not only inside the limited geography of Gaza, but it was regional and international. And today, the Palestinian narrative is winning over the Israeli criminal narrative. You have seen how the South African stepped forward to make Israel for the first time questionable in the International Court of Justice, and how other countries, they started to join them. How the students in universities in America, in England, in Harvard, in Cambridge, again in America, they are today out because they are no more tolerating that so-called the survival of Holocaust to make another Holocaust inside Gaza. That this thing should not be tolerated by anyone.
Dr. Khaled, but the bigger dark side of the situation is that nobody is stopping Israel of committing this continuing aggression. And even now, time and again, Netanyahu is saying that they have launched this ground offensive, this air offensive, to make it sure that Hamas is eliminated as a political and military force. How do you interpret this?
This is unreachable goals, because Hamas is no more a political party. Hamas is an idea. Hamas is a nation is Hamas. Hamas present today everywhere in the 5 continents because they were rational, they were wise, they are believing in a holistic approach of resistance, where they proceed in the ground and they also negotiate. They use the diplomatic means, the political means, the media, the changes in the narratives. That tells you that the enemy is losing. Israel today is isolated, and I tell you, according to the social scientists, the collapse of the oppressing authorities, dictator authorities like Israeli leadership, is steeply swift, and it can happen at any time, with what Laclau used to say, an empty signifier. So you never know when they will collapse. Whatever you are witnessing today, the brutality of Netanyahu and the adamant, stubborn mentality of the Israeli leadership is an indication of internal crisis of the very Israeli leadership, that they have no other solution because they are corrupt, and they know if they stop war, they will go to the jail and interrogation committees. Hence, I'm telling you, the counting, the down counting of the Israeli government has started, because they have fought against the norms of the humanity. They have fought against the principles of justice of this world. They are oppressors, and everybody is talking against them, irrespective of religious affiliation, geographic affiliation, ethnic affiliation. Everybody is talking about the so-called Israeli government, the fanatic extremist mentality of those settler government like Ibn Gfir, Smotrich, and Netanyahu himself.
I understand that the international public opinion is with Palestinian. Some are secular friends, they are raising questions that the Hamas is responsible in a way for the killing of such a large number of tens of thousands of Palestinians, because Hamas miscalculated the military might of an apartheid state. You think that there was some miscalculation, or you were really expecting that there will be a Israeli aggression at this scale, and still in the hindsight you still think that the military operation that Hamas launched on October 7th was correct? Because now obviously the scale of destruction in Gaza is a huge 70-80% buildings have been destroyed, 35,000 people have been killed, 10,000 others are under the rebels, 78,000 are casualties, and then tens of thousands of their children and other members of the populations. They are disabled. They would not be able to do anything. I know it's a big sacrifice, but you think in given situation, when the world wasn't supporting you, when everybody was against you, that was a right decision. You are still determined that that was a correct decision. There was no other option at a time when the Arab countries and other Muslim countries were almost ready to normalize ties with Israel had this operation not taken place.
Well, Jawad, listen, this question would be feasible in the beginning to check with it. Today, after the passage of 7 months, everybody, as you said, that the support for what is happening today to the Palestinian side, to the Palestinian resistance itself, the prayers, the activities, the changes even of the official stance of many governments to support Hamas in particular, and the people of Gaza everywhere in the world, as I said, in the 5 continents, that by itself is an answer to your question. What we have done on 7th of October has shaken the international community to remember the actual face of Israeli brutality. That brutality which has started in 1948, where they have destroyed more than 600 Palestinian villages then during the Nakba, and nobody stopped them. Nobody even tried to understand that we are suffering a special type of enemies, those thugs which has been gathered from everybody in the world, who their photos, they were attired on the walls of London with posters wanted against this much pound, like Begin and the first prime ministers of Israel. And those people, those very people who were saying that without massacres, Israel would not be imagined, would not be established. So with these mentalities, 7th of October has just only reminded the international community with the actual face of Israel. Now, as you said also in your question, that after the paralysis after the failure, the fiasco of diplomacy and the political solutions, the Palestinian people arrived at a point that they are left to their own destiny. The mention of normalization, which you have mentioned, it is very paradoxic by itself. It means that the Netanyahu creed would have been successful to forget the Palestinian and just go and proceed with the relation with the others. And the Palestinian will be minority in so-called Jewish state without any rights, without any future. Go and ask Mahmoud Abbas, who has entered in this marathonic talks with the Israelis. Netanyahu even did not pick his telephone number for years. What is the meaning of political solution? The time that everything was stalemated, the so-called two-state nation, the so-called one nation for one land for two nations, all they failed. So we have just only exercised the very right which has been granted by the international law, which says explicitly that the people who are living under occupation, the time they have exhausted the political and diplomatic solution, it is their right to go and defend themselves with all available means. Go and check with the Afghans, go and check with the Vietnamese, go and check with the Japanese, go and check with those all victims of American and Zionist hegemony over the century. They have decided to get their own independence. And that is a simple formula. Give it to me in a shortcut formula, in a peaceful way, in a diplomatic way, then why should I resist? Why should I go for killing? We love our children. We do not want a devastating destruction being done by these brutal Israeli arsenal. We need to live in peace as any peaceful nation in the world. If this will be granted by any political solution, we would have gone for it. But unfortunately, you will not advise me to live as a slave or under occupation and not even to say no and not even to raise my voice or defend myself. That was the whole story.
It is understandable. Let's see the Americans' role. Many say there's a proverb, all that glitter may not be gold. The Americans are trying to create optics that Israel seems to be becoming a liability on Americans. So that is why the Pentagon has paused the weapon supplies to the apartheid states, and there are credible reports suggesting that that the USA has already provided sufficient volume and stock of the weapons to Israel. They don't need immediately more weapons, and those weapons are being used against Palestinians in Rafah and elsewhere. So how do you see these Americans posturing? You think they are really sincere with the Palestinian people, or they're also saying that if since there is now only one crossing to Egypt, which was the main source of humanitarian aid into Gaza, that has been occupied, blocked by Israeli people, are being starved to death. And then there was some arrangement by the Americans. They're saying that perhaps they will go for some sort of aid drop to drop the aid into Rafah. You think Americans are sincere, their policies are changing, or you think there is a bigger plan where they want to divide Gaza or maybe relocate part of the population to somewhere else?
See, if we refer to the official statements of the American administrations, the continuous American administrations, the deep state inside America, we need to appreciate two major aspects, and they are different from each other. One is the differences between particular administration in America and other administration in Israel, and that is very clear and obvious that there is a mismatching or lack of harmony between between Netanyahu and the Democrat. Let it be Obama or Biden later on. But on the other hand, there is a big aspect which shall not be forgotten. Again, you can find it from the literature of the American official statements that says that they are committed to the security of Israel, and they are committed to safeguard the project of Israel, which was supposed to take care the interests of the Western powers. Top of them is America. So Blinken or maybe Kirby, when he say that we have suspended some of the weapons not to be sent or to be scheduled to be sent to Israel. At the same side, they are saying that we are not against a mission against Rafah, but we are against a wide mission inside Rafah, which tells you that they are given they are giving the green light to the Israeli forces to attack over Rafah, with the claim if some 50,000 or 80,000 out of 1,400,000 people, they are leaving their refugee camps to go for another places outside Rafah, so it will be okay for the Israeli forces to attack over Rafah. Then the other thing which I'm telling you over here, that we should also appreciate the differences between the actual foreign policy to safeguard Israel from the American administration and American deep state, and also the internal speech. There is almost civil disobedience inside American society against the American foreign policy supporting Israel. So they need to tackle these things. So they want to say to the students, to the Jews, to the Christians, to the Muslims, the American who are in the streets and universities against Israel, that we are also punishing Israel, where in reality they are not doing so. So this hypocrisy also has to do with something relevant to the Jewish lobby, relevant to the upcoming election of the American administration, but in the strategic trajectory of the foreign policy of America, we need to appreciate the deep commitment of the American officials and the organizations to the safeguard of Israel. So these are four major entities. The actual stance,
But what is
the expressing of.
What is the end game of Americans and Israel in on Gaza?
There is no change. There is no change. It's just only reshuffling the cards, redeployment of the positions. But on the other hand, we did not witness any real pressure from the American administration. As you have said, they have given enough to the Israelis that Netanyahu today dared to say that we have enough to be alone. And according to the data, they have enough weapons for at least 1 year to fight and kill more, during which the American administration will be again support and sponsor this genocide which is happening inside Gaza. And to us as Palestinian, what we don't need to go further with more philosophy and analysis. We need to harvest the fruit. We need the grape, as it is said. So what we need to see over here, that this genocide should be stopped. We believe that America can stop this genocide through pressurizing Israel, but today we are not able to see this practically.
My question is back to the same previously what I had asked. The end game of Americans and Israel on Gaza. Do you think they are going to change its landscape? What kind of strategy that you read is there?
See, I don't want to be a political analysis over here. For me, as a Palestinian, I'm telling you, as much as I know, any plan will be improvised or imposed over our nation against the legitimate right of our people. We will fight against it till the last drop of our children. That is what we have started. That is the message for the international community. Either you give us our rights and make us live in peace as any other nation in the world. We will not accept to go back to the environment and the situation of 6th of October. Otherwise, anything will happen against this thing. That means we need to think of a new 7th of October, new tension, and a new escalation. And the direct responsible for that is the Israeli attitude and the American administration attitude sponsoring this continuous genocide in Gaza.
Rafah crossing is blocked, as we have already discussed, and it is essentially a breach of a peace deal between Egypt and Israel, the guarantors of which were the Americans. Now, despite the fact that Israel has taken over this Rafah crossing, we have not heard much from Egyptians, and we have not heard much from the Americans who were the so-called guarantors. At the end of the day, these are the Palestinian resistance groups who are resisting Israelis. Now, you see some kind of a bigger strategy behind this blocking of Rafah crossing. Do you think it's for a longer period of time, or they have some other way out from other parts of Gaza, or there is something else going on?
Actually, it is a little bit complicated, but I want to make it easy. Unfortunately, for a reason or so, this capturing or occupying or closing of Rafah crossing is also in harmony of the grand plan of the American attitude to what they call it the next day of the war. The division of Gaza into two places cut by what is called Netzarim corridor, closure of all ground crossing borders, let it be Rafah and other crossing borders between us and the occupied Palestine, like Karm Abu Salem, to the other 7 crossing borders, and keeping only entry is through the seaport, which is planned in the mind of the American, north to the northwest to the Netzarim corridor, making the northern area of Gaza devastated and as a buffer zone, not viable for living of any human being over there, making the remaining 2.4 million Palestinians who are living in the Gaza traveling to the south of the valley of Gaza, and living in their own city as a refugee, looking to their houses across the 2-kilometer width Netzarim corridor, and they are not able to go over there. This is their plan. But for us, we will deal with any of those plans as an occupying forces. We will deal with them as an instigation for more escalation. And I tell you, the maneuvers being adopted by Israeli forces today in Rafah is nothing different from those maneuvers which has failed already in other places in Gaza and in the north of Gaza Strip, and in other places in Gaza Strip. So that will extend the so-called pressure over the Palestinian resistance. We have talks, so you can imagine how the behavior, the bloody behavior, the brutal behavior, political behavior of the American and the Israelis to pressurize us through more killing of the civilians. That is the theory of the killers, of the warmongers over here. So what we need to tell everyone who's thinking in these steps, that those are failing processes. We will deal with any plan that does not deal with the requirements of our nation as an occupying forces, as a warmongers, and as elements of more and more escalation. The closure of Rafah should be dealt by the international community, and here we Palestinians are putting the responsibility of more humanitarian crisis over the international community, who still till this moment did not do enough to compel the Israeli forces to go out from the Rafah crossing border, because this is an international border between us and Egypt. And if there is anyone who's having the right to run that crossing border, it's only the Palestinian side and the Egyptian side, and nobody else, especially after 2005 and the flee of the and the failure of the Paris Accord in 1994, that's Rafah Crossing Accord, where the European has fled, the Israelis has evacuated, and the Palestinian side left over there alone. So today we need also to study a new mechanism. But for now, the immediate requirement, the immediate procedure which is required today is to reopen the Rafah gate for the allowing the humanitarian aids to get into Gaza, and to prevent more of the of humanitarian crisis.
We are coming to the very last part of our interview. It is a sign of very encouragement that at least there is a large-scale public resentment in the Western countries, which the governments of whom have been the bigger backer of Israel. But at the same time, sadly, we have seen that there is no reaction from the Arab countries. Though their hearts beat in the Arab countries and the Muslim countries with the Palestinian, but we have not seen that kind of reaction on the roads as much as we have witnessed on the Western streets. And this has come at a time when there are credible reports in the media that the Saudi Arabia has been arresting people who are speaking in favor of Palestine on social media. Do you think there is a kind of a scare among the Arab rulers that if Hamas wins in Palestine, that could possibly be reactivation of Akhwanul Muslimin, Muslim Brotherhood across the Arab world? And that is you think a fear because of which Arab monarchs are suppressing a dissenting voice in the society?
Actually, let me over here highlight the concept of security, the theory of security all over the region. Unfortunately, the concept of security, let it be inside the Israeli society and let it be also inside the Arab region. Unfortunately, the security theory over here today has arrived to a conclusion that security of any party should be on the dead body of the others, which is too dangerous. That is because of the attitude of the extremist, fanatic mentalities who are not thinking of the concept of us, but the concept of we and the other. The time we will envisage the theory of us as human, everybody will be granted his or her right. That is called the justice. Well, I don't want to be platonic over here, because we are not living in a just world post Second World War. We are transforming this new world order, which has been erupted unipolarly after the Cold War, into another multipolar new world order. Till then, we will be witnessing this chaos and instability, unfortunately, and the victims are the people in this region. Hamas has been tried by their brothers, by their enemies, by their competitors, by their rivals, by friends everywhere in the world. And they have found that we are serious business holder. We can assure everybody, if they want to go for any serious business towards stability in the region, the address is really Hamas. This message is for the official position in the Arab region and in the world, that today our people has voted for us in the field, has voted for us in the election boxes, has voted for us in the charity, humanitarian, in the security aspects. Let us deal our internal issues with the will of our own nation, not the will of the imposed theories. What we have in our mind and in our heart today, that we enjoy a kinship a real deep relation with Arabs and Muslim worlds, and also with the rational voices in the world. We are serious to achieve the legitimate rights of our own people in any possible mean. If this international community, regional, international, local, will allow us to achieve those goals with the shortest peaceful mean, we are the first player of this business. And if not, our people has decided to go to defend their own selves and not allow anybody to impose any forced principles against them, which doesn't match with our own sentiments, which doesn't match with our own legitimate just issue.
My last question. A survey conducted in January this year in Israel suggests that 97% people in Israel, they support genocidal war on Gaza. And 60% among them, they demand that there should be blockage of humanitarian aid to Gaza, which means starving people to death. How do you see this such a hateful sentiments against Palestinian in Israel at such an alarming level? I mean, it looks like that perhaps the Israeli population, it is a truly represented by Netanyahu, who's been showing that kind of aggression against Palestinian.
That also explained my idea, which I have mentioned earlier in the previous question. The concept of security. Unfortunately, the decision makers internationally, for their own very narrow interests, they started to impose the elements of hatred. So it makes anyone in the international community, any citizen, resort to the narrowest identity he or she belong to make themselves safe. So they do not think themselves as a human, but they think themselves as, for example, Israeli, or as a man from Tel Aviv, or as a man from the Haredim, or as a man for a particular narrow identity. If they vote for the more killing machine person to be their own prime minister, that means that they are more secure. And this is what we have witnessed over here. Hence, the question is not for us. The question is not for us. The question is for the American administration, who is continuously talking about the hatred speech. The hatred speech has been invoked by them through more killing, through more oppression, through more making the victims behave as anyone who wants to defend themselves. What is happening today in the Israeli society, that they are shifting toward right because they think mistakenly that they will be more safe with the hands of more killing machine, and that proved wrong. You will never be safe if the Palestinians are not safe. You will never enjoy any security if the Palestinians are not secure. You will never get your children back if our heroes who are in the Israeli jail and behind the Israeli bars for decades will not join their families again. So this is the formula. It's no more that we accept to be killed and not to defend ourselves. We will defend ourselves with these two means. Either you grant me my rights, or I will defend myself my own way.
This brings me to an offshoot question. Before October 7th, when Hamas launched a military operation in occupied Palestinian territory, there was 50% unemployment. 70 to 80% people were on the handouts. And now with the large-scale genocide and the destruction of everything that could have been the source for the livelihood of the people, the situation has gone from bad to the worst. And then you had such a tens of thousands of people who were recruited by Hamas because they wanted to take revenge of their dear ones who were killed by Israeli Air Force over the period of time. Now, with the killing of such a large scale number of people, more than 43,000 people, I'm also including those who are under the rebels, do you think that once this war concludes, or even now, Hamas will be in a better position to that these people who are the survivor of the families, they will join Hamas and other resistance groups, and they will be readying themselves to carry out more attacks against Israel if this genocidal war, this aggression does not come to an end?
An opinion poll has been conducted recently by a research center from Ramallah, which is near to the American administration. And they ask the very question from the Rafah people. If it happens that this war will finish and you will enter into election, will you vote for Hamas? 75% of them, they said yes. And this is not because that Hamas is something unique, but because today Hamas, as I told you, it turned to be a trend among the nation. It's an idea. We represent the pulse of the street, and we will continue to be responsible to carry out the responsibility of returning the legitimate rights of our people. The one who wants to win, he has to count his achievement. The losses can be dealt later on, especially with the support of the nation, with the belief, with the creed, and with the will to win and to achieve the dignity and independence.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khaled. I look forward to have you again in my show. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you indeed, Jawad. Allah Hafiz.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geo-strategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geo-strategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.